Welcome to the Joyfully Golden podcast. We're excited to share today's episode.
If you've enjoyed any of our episodes, make sure to like it, share it with someone who may also enjoy it, and subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date with our latest content.
Enjoy today's episode.
There is a quote by Anatole France that reads, "If we don't change, we don't grow. And if we don't grow, we aren't really living." Growth is one of the most prominent and obvious principles in life. We see it in nature all around us and even in human life. As we progress through life, however, we begin to forget that the discomfort, challenges, and unknowns that come with change are the exact same catalysts that bring opportunities for growth into our lives. Refusing to embrace change or even fearing it is a sure way to stifle growth and to settle for a life below the one you were born to live. In today's episode, we invite you to never again allow the fear of change to stop you from growing and flourishing into the fullness of all you were created to be.
Joy, why is change necessary?
That's a great question. And I think change is necessary because without change, there's no growth, first of all. And I think one of the most constant rule of just life and the way the universe or just things in nature work is either you grow or you die, and so I think even in our human lives, though a lot of time change is uncomfortable, just because we love to be safe and to be able to predict what is happening, because it's a part of being able to to feel in control, and change takes that away from you, because with change you have to adapt to what is presented to you versus being in control. And because of that, I feel like we shy away from it. But I genuinely believe that without change it's impossible to grow. And I also believe that without growth, life is, it's a form of death, and it might not be dying, going to the grave, but it might be a form of death, like not progressing or not fully discovering the extent in which you can develop a gift, or not being able to achieve a dream, not being able to be a blessing to the people that are around you. All those to me are forms of death, And so one way or another, I feel like the lack of growth brings some kind of death, and I feel like not having any kind of change available makes you not being open to grow, and then kind of like the whole cycle. So because of that, I feel like change is extremely important. Andrew, if anything at all, what usually scares you when you think about change?
Well, probably two things that, for me, that I could think of are what are you losing or giving up? That comfort. So I think it is normal to have a fear of there's a loss. Like, you can calculate what you're going to lose by doing something else. Because in order to change, you have to give up or alter something you're already doing or not doing. So there's that subtle kind of fear of, okay, what am I losing? What am I giving up? Is it worth for the alternative what I'm changing for? Because we don't necessarily know if what's the change, if it's going to be successful. It's like right now, how you live your life, whether it does work well for you or not, you know it, you understand it. The moment that we decide to change, there becomes this fear of if what we're giving up is worth giving it up in order to have it. Then the other thing I think is that what will other people think of me? And I don't think for most of the things and a lot of the changes we have in our own lives that's really a relevant question. But there are certain things, like if you change the people that you spend your time with, or if you change your relationship, or if you change some of your large living habits that typically involve other people, there could be feelings or fears of rejection. And I think it's okay to know that that's a thing that happens, but that shouldn't prevent you, like what other people will think about you, from changing if you know in your heart that the change that you're trying to make is one that's better for you. Joy, what are some of the ways that we can encourage others to choose to change for the better?
By changing for the better ourselves. I think that there is no better way to show or to exemplify something, especially when it comes to a way of life. I don't think there's any better way to do that than to be the change that you want to show or encourage someone to have. So, I mean, you can give advice, you can point people in the right direction, all those things. But in my experience, the people who have had the most impact on my life and have inspired me the most to want to change for the better are people who modeled that in front of me, and I saw them changing for the better, and I wanted that, and I went after it, And so in the same way, I think in our lives, that's one of the best things that we can do for people that we want to inspire or to help embrace change, especially for the better, is just to do it ourselves, to see ways in which we can improve, in which we can grow, in which we can continue to become a better version of ourselves, and say yes to that. Because every single time we do, obviously benefits us, but you never know. There might be someone watching, and that's the only push they need to say, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. And then you might be able to come along them with your life and the person that you're becoming, and take them alongside in that journey. Andrew, what is one instance in which you didn't allow the fear of change to stop you from embracing change? And another side to that question, what did you end up finding on the other side of that change, or facing that fear?
That's a really good question. I had to think about it. But I think one that was really interesting was my major in college. And the reason why I want to choose this example, because I have a couple, but it was, I'm paying to go to school, right? I'm paying to try to get educated. I changed my major like 5 times. Nice. And it caused me to take a lot longer journey to go through school. It took me more than 4 years to graduate, but I still graduated. And what it taught me, I was focusing on what I thought at the time I needed to do. And when I discovered that it was time for a change, an example for the major, for the different classes, it then led me to look at, okay, what are the requirements for this change? Who do I need to talk to? What kind of courses do I need to take? How much is it going to cost me? Can I actually do this? And the answer to all those questions was yes. And so I would go and talk with the administrative offices of the colleges, because I went back and forth from city and state like 4 times for school. And it was a matter of figuring out what's the next step. And so what that taught me was, as soon as I gave up this belief that I had to do it all in the 4 years, and that, I not going to graduate, because I was like, I knew I would eventually. It was going to take a long time. Then it allowed me to focus on what do I need to do at the time to get to the next step. And I was slowly removing majors that I realized I didn't want to pursue. And it's kind of funny, because it ultimately led me back to the one I started with, which is psychology. However, going into business, looking at culinary, looking at biology, allowed me to explore those fields, take some different classes, and kind of get a bit of a taste for what that would look like. And then having the freedom of choice to say, like, no, this isn't the decision I want to make. And so I'd go back. And so even though I ended up with the major that I started out with, my ability and flexibility to change majors, to change roles, schools, classes, curriculums, courses, allowed me to adapt that into other areas of my life, which I think is what has brought me to where I am today.
Thank you so much for that answer, for your answer to the last question, because that was, I think it was very inspiring, first of all, because I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of, personally I can, because I changed my major a few times as well. And that moment of being in a place in which you're like, I've given so much time and energy to this already. So is it worth changing? Am I willing to put that much extra work again, before I graduate and everything? But ultimately, I think it's a good proof of courage. And what I love the most about that example is, I think that is one of the things that make people so afraid of change. It's because once you change, it means the trajectory also changes. And I think a lot of times people are paralyzed when they see change, because it throws a trench into the plan, sometime perfectly laid out plan that we think we had, because it's like you go to college and you're like, I'm going to graduate in 4 years, I'm going to do this. And then when you start feeling the pull from your destiny, from your calling, telling you, okay, maybe you need to try this before you graduate, all of a sudden you're like, okay, but this might change it to 4.5 years, to 5 to 6 years, and you start getting nervous and afraid because your plan is now shaken. So now you have to choose between growing in the pursuit of the plan or deciding to stick to what you know, what you understand, what you have perfectly written, and not try anything that might disrupt it. And I think a lot of time, if we're honest, I mean, it's a legitimate fear. And a lot of time, if we're honest, that really hinders. But I think that is just an encouragement that I want to give to anyone listening, that it is worth it. It is definitely scary. It is definitely challenging, and it will definitely shake you. But on the other side of it, the person that you become in the process is so much more ready to handle the final destination than if it was just a straight perfect path, the way in which you wanted it to be, so that's one of the reasons I think we really should make that almost a habit. Even though it's an uncomfortable habit, I think we should make it a habit to almost attack change when we see it, because the opportunities that come with it always leave us better people and always leave us stronger, wiser, and much better equipped for the journey that's ahead. How about you? What are some of your last thoughts?
Well, I really like that we're talking about this topic, because I think one of the listening you to talk right now was that once you make a change, that doesn't prevent you from making another change. And I think sometimes we're so caught up on the first initial change,
that's good,
the first step, that we rule out the ability to adapt and react to how that first step goes. Because you can decide, it's like, okay, I'm driving to work, right? And the traffic's here, so I'm going to change. I'm going to go a different direction. Well, if I made the wrong turn, I can recorrect the course and get back on track. And that's just a simple everyday example. But if we decide to either start working on our health or working on our education or a relationship, that first step, we make that decision because we believe it to be the correct thing to do. After we've made that decision, now we have the ability to see how that works or to see if it's something we still need to keep practicing. But we rob ourselves of the opportunity to ever get to our end goals and destinations or be the best we can if we're afraid of just taking that first step. Because that change doesn't always mean permanent. The only constant is change. So change itself can be a temporary movement in the right direction that'll later be adjusted and adjusted and adjusted until we finally get to where we're supposed to be.
That's so good. And I just want to add something else, because I thought of something you just said that it makes me look at life almost like as this beautiful journey, right? This beautiful adventure. And there is so much for you to explore, to discover, to learn about the world, about yourself, about others. And because of the way we are wired, most of us would go through life without ever discovering any of those things unless given the opportunity through change. And so I think if we change our perspective of change, no pun intended, to instead of this dangerous thing that is going to destroy anything, as just life giving us an opportunity to explore something new, to discover something new, to learn something new, to see another angle in life, to see something else that's beautiful, we're going to get excited now every time there's change, because every time we're like, okay, so there's something new for me to find out, because this life is just so beautiful and full of wonder, and because of how we wire, we need change to get us to this place and experience that wonder. So I feel like that shift from what you said, like, it just made me think, if we made that shift, like, I just wonder how excited we will be moving forward, every time change presents itself.
The only constant thing in life is change. Change allows for growth. If we never changed, then we would cease to exist. Getting married is a change. Having children is a change. Learning how to speak, read, write, even driving and cooking are all considered changes. Changes in our skills, behavior, and actions. Change is necessary. In many aspects of our lives, change is celebrated.
It is yearned for. It is welcomed. But in some aspects of our lives, we resist change. We resist changing areas of our lives that we know are not good for us. And oftentimes it is because we are afraid. We are afraid of losing what we know. We may even be convinced that change is impossible. But we must put our fear of change in perspective. We have always been changing, since the moment we were born. Change is good for us. It allows us to become greater versions of ourselves. Do not fear becoming all you were made to be. Let go of the fear of changing and embrace the opportunity it brings.